We will now begin with a very important and an interesting unit, that is diversity in the living world. So under this unit, we will study about the various types of organisms present in this living world, hence making it a diverse collection of living organisms. If you look around, you will see a large variety of living organisms, be it potted plants, insects, birds, your pets, and other animals and plants. So, in your general observation, you must have noticed all these large variety of living organisms. Each different kind of plant, animal, or organism that you see represents a species. So, each kind of organism that you see around yourself, it represents one or the other species. Here you can see a mammal or an animal, the dog, which is a part of the diversity of this living world. The number of species that are known and described range between 1.7 to 1.8 million. So the total number of species that have been known till now is 1.7 to 1.8 million. This refers to biodiversity, or the number and types of organisms present on Earth. So basically this is what constitutes biodiversity, that is the diversity of the living organisms present on the Earth. Here you can see the living organisms present underwater inside deep oceans. So that was the general introduction about the diversity in the living world. We now come over to two important definitions which are related to the diversity of organisms, that is nomenclature and identification. So we'll study what are these two. First, nomenclature. Naming of living organisms such that a particular organism is known by the same name all over the world is called nomenclature. So what is nomenclature? It is the naming of the living organisms so that the same name is there for the organism all over the world. And what is identification? Nomenclature or naming is only possible when the organism is described correctly and we know to what organism the name is attached to. So this is called identification. So as the name suggests, it is basically identifying the organism before naming it or giving it a nomenclature. So the correct description of the organism and knowing what name is attached to which organism is known as identification. Now the scientific names. They are provided by the International Code for Botanical Nomenclature, that is ICBN, to the plants, and the International Code for Zoological Nomenclature, that is ICZN, to animals. And they follow the concept of binomial nomenclature. So there's something called scientific name of an organism, and it is provided by ICBN to plants, that is the Code for Botanical Nomenclature, botanical referring to plants, and ICZN, that is the International Code for Zoological Nomenclature, zoological referring to animals. And the scientific names, they strictly follow the concept of binomial nomenclature, about which we'll study now. What is binomial nomenclature? Biologists follow universally accepted principles to provide scientific names to known organisms. Each name has two components, the generic name and the specific epithet. So basically, universally accepted principles, they are used by biologists to provide scientific names to organisms. And the scientific name, it is made up of two parts, the generic name and the specific epithet. This system of providing a name with two components is called as binomial nomenclature. So these were the features of the binomial nomenclature, which is used by ICBN and ICZN respectively for plants and animals to provide scientific names. We'll now study what are the rules of the binomial nomenclature. The very first rule is biological names are generally in Latin and written in italics. So the names are in Latin and they are written in italics. They are Latinized or derived from Latin irrespective of their origin. So irrespective of where the origin of the organism is, the names are Latinized or derived from Latin. The second rule, the first word in a biological name represents the genus, while the second component, it denotes the specific epithet. So we had studied that there are two components of a biological name in binomial nomenclature, that is the generic name and the specific epithet. So the first word, it represents the generic name or the genus, and the second component, it denotes the specific epithet. The third rule, both the words in a biological name when handwritten are separately underlined or printed in italics to indicate their Latin origin. So whenever we write a biological name that is is whenever it is handwritten, both the words, they are separately underlined. This is very important. They are separately underlined or they are printed in italics so as to indicate their Latin